Hello everybody, welcome to a new series I'm calling DECKSPLAINED, a series where we look at decks that featured in recent championships such as regionals, internationals, and etc. and talk about some of the choices that were made and how they differ from like what was maybe previously going on the meta, previous lists, etc. Maybe some standout cards. I don't know, I've got some ideas for this, but we'll see how we go. And the first deck I want to look at is probably my favourite because of how potentially simple it can be, but I think with some interesting ways to play it, is Jesse's Miraidon EX. This deck was played to second place by Jesse Parker, I believe, and I absolutely adore it. I think it's brilliant. So it's a typical Miraidon deck. We'll talk about the cards pretty quickly, we'll go through them, and we'll highlight any interesting choices first of all. So of course we have Miraidon EX with the tandem unit ability. Once during your turn you may search your deck for up to 2 basic electric Pokemon, put them onto your bench and then shuffle your deck, and the attack Photon Blaster, 220, 2 electric, 1 colourless. During your next turn this Pokemon can't attack. Very standard in a Miraidon deck, I bet you are surprised to hear. Next up is Raikou V. Ability Fleet-Footed. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may draw a card, and the attack Lightning Rondo, 20 plus damage, 1 electric, 1 colourless. This attack does 20 more damage for each benched Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. So the most damage this can do without any damage modifiers is 220, which, as we know in the current format, is a very, very good number to be able to hit. Next up is Raichu V, another standard in Miraidon. We have the attack Fast Charge for 1 electric energy. If you go first, you can use this attack during your first turn, search your deck for an electric energy card, attach it to this Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. If your opponent's a slow starter, this isn't the worst thing to start off with, honestly. Like, I will go through maybe a couple of the matchups in these kind of series, but it's honestly not a bad card to start off with in certain matchups. Second attack, which is probably the main focus, Dynamic Spark, 60x damage for 2 electric energy. You may discard any amount of electric energy from your Pokemon. This attack does 60 damage for each card you discarded in this way. So of course that is every Pokemon, not just Raichu, as, you know, some people will sometimes try and argue. I've seen that before. It's not coming from that Pokemon. It doesn't need to. It comes from anything. So if you're discarding 5 energy, you're hitting 300, which is taking out any Pokemon V in the format. If you're taking out 1 more card, 6 energy, that's doing 360, which I believe takes out absolutely anything in the format. It's a great card to finish off with, and it's an interesting one because you want to try and use it as a surprise attacker, but it's kind of hard to because you do need to set up electric across the board for it to work. On top of that, we have the usual engine to power up our Pokemon. We have Mareep and Flaaffy with the ability Dynamotor. Once during your turn, you may attach an electric energy card from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. You can use this ability across multiple Flaaffys as well, so you have 2 in the deck. If you can get 2 powered up, that's 2 plus your manual attachment, 3 end your turn. Not bad, not bad at all. Let's talk about a couple of the tech cards into this now. So first of all, this is a different one from what we talked about with Miraidon recently. This is Flying Pikachu V, which takes the place of Zeraora with its free retreat cost. And it does have 2 attacks, which it may come up in certain circumstances. We have Thundershock for 20 damage, 1 electric energy, flip a coin if heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed, and Fly for 120 damage, 3 colourless energy. Flip a coin if tails, this attack does nothing if heads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks done to this Pokemon. It is coin flips, but it's still a potentially interesting card. Like I said, its main point is its retreat, and as mentioned by Jesse, I'll bring up his tweet, the reason Flying Pikachu V over Zeraora is it's got its free retreat, obviously that's great, it's got the 190 HP, which is fantastic, it has the resistance to fighting, which, you know, if you're trying to counter Miraidon, you're probably going to look at fighting Pokemon. You are weak to electric, but it's one of those. And you can throw the Forest Seal Stone onto the Flying Pikachu V and save Raikou and Raichu for the Bravery Charm. So there's a lot of logic there. I quite like it. I enjoy that a lot. We also have Zapdos from Pokemon Go. We're here for the ability Lightning Symbol. Your basic electric Pokemon's attacks, except any Zapdos, do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Very nice. As I mentioned, you're hitting 220s. That makes certain Pokemon, such as Tyranitar V, a little awkward to hit. You throw down a Zapdos, suddenly you're hitting 230. It's not bad. And of course, Electric Ball is there for, I don't know, you guys got a Mimikyu down? Not today. We're taking it out with the Zapdos. 110 damage, 2 electric, 1 colourless. And finally, onto our tech cards. We have Squawkabilly EX, which features in Miraidon decks already, with the ability Squawk and Seize. Once during your first turn, you may discard your hand and draw 6 cards. You can't use more than 1 Squawk and Seize ability during your turn, and I'll always mention it because I low-key think it's kinda good. Motivate for 20 damage, 1 energy, attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Picture the scene, right? You've got a Squawkabilly stuck in the active for whatever reason, you attach an energy, you do 20 damage. Okay, cool, now Raikou can hit for 1 less benched Pokemon. I think that's good. I think that's good. You're also attaching 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. Maybe you attach it to that aforementioned Raikou. Maybe you put it onto the Raichu to power that up. 2 energy cards for the cost of 2 prize cards might not seem the best, but for argument's sake, you lose 2 here, maybe you gain 3 because of Raichu's big attack, or Raiku's now suddenly set up to take a return knockout. There are scenarios where this Pokemon works. If anything, I think it's great as a distraction. It's like, oh yeah, you take out that 160 HP Pokemon, meanwhile I've just powered up all of my electric Pokemon and we're set up for the game. You know, it has its uses. We also have, and these two are quite new to the deck, Lumineon V. Again, we're here specifically for the ability. Luminous Sign, when you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Great for late game boss's orders to close out the game. And Drapion, we all know Drapion. Drapion's anti-Mew. Ability Wild Style, this Pokemon's attacks cost 1 colorless less for each of your opponent's Single Strike, Rapid Strike, and Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. Dynamic Tail hits for 190. And it also has the added bonus of not being the worst thing in the world to bring out against the Rapid Strike deck. It's like, okay, well, I'll just take you out, I guess, with 190. You know, there's use cases. There's use cases. For energy, we're looking at 14 electric. Absolutely standard there. As for items, we have 4 electric generators. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Attach up to 2 basic electric energy cards you find there to your benched electric Pokemon in any way you like. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck. We have 1 escape rope. Each player switches their active Pokemon, one of their bench Pokemon. Your opponent switches first. If a player does not have a bench Pokemon, they don't switch Pokemon. You just do what I do. If you've got 1 active and nothing on the bench, you go like that. Just to make it look like it got roped. I don't know. I find it funny. 2 Nest Balls. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck, which is a little bit more unusual than some of the previous Miraidon lists. They quite often only run 1 Nest Ball. I think 2 is quite nice here. 2 Switch Cart. Switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage from the Pokemon you move to your bench. 4 Ultra Balls. You can use this card only if you discard 2 other cards from your hand. Search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. 2 Beach Court. The retreat cost of each basic Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, is 1 colorless less. Again, unusual for current Miraidon builds, but it does take the place of the 4 Path to the Peaks. Path to the Peak is an interesting one because it does turn off a lot of the good abilities you'd like to use, such as Luminous Sign, such as Wild Style, such as Raiku's Fleet-Footed. So I can definitely see the argument for including Beach Court, and everything except for Drapion has a 1 energy retreat cost. So you've got free switching, which is really handy. Arven, search your deck for an item card and a Pokemon tool card, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. That can be Electric Generator Forest Sealstone, that could be Nest Ball into, and you know, there's a few different combinations there. 3 Boss's Orders, switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot, down from 4, but I think 3 is absolutely fine. 2 Iono, each player shuffles their hand and puts it onto the bottom of their deck. If either player puts any cards on the bottom of their deck in this way, each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. 1 Judge, each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws 4 cards. 4 Professor's Research, discard your hand and draw 7 cards. 2 Bravery Charms, the basic Pokemon this card's attached to gets plus 50 HP, so that brings your Raichu and Raikou up to 250, your Miraidon up to 270. Very nice. And we also have Forest Sealstones, I believe 2 of those, let me just double check. Yep, 2 Forest Sealstones. Gives you access to the V-Star power, which has the ability to start Alchemy. During your turn, you may search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. You'll be surprised how many times this is used for Electric Generator. Other than the Pokemon, the list stays relatively similar. Beach Court replaces Path to the Peak, which I think is a great combination. And other than that, there's not too much that's different. Please point out in the comments if I'm wrong. The inclusion of Zapdos is absolutely huge. Being able to hit for those bigger numbers like 230 is absolutely fantastic. Even being able to hit for 210 is good enough in a lot of circumstances. I like the inclusion of Drapion. Mew definitely needs to be respected still. Even though 1,000 counters exist now, Drapion I think is still one of the better ones. It's nice just to take those 3 prize cards quite easily. And of course, adding Lumineon just makes things a little bit more smooth in setup. I think the danger with this deck is you could end up with one too many setup Pokemon on the deck. Like, I could quite easily see Squawkabilly and Lumineon being on the bench at the same time, and they are just so weak and so easy to knock out. There is potentially room for a penny or something like that, just to maybe play them down, use their abilities, bring them back up. I don't know. I'm no expert on deck building, but I think it's a really good deck. It's really good, and it must be fantastic. It got to 2nd place. Played absolutely brilliantly as well by Jesse. So that's it for our first episode of DECKSPLAINED. If I missed anything, or is anything you'd like to know more about, please let me know, and I'll try to answer as best I can in the comments. And I'm going to try and keep up with this series, because I think keeping up to date with current decks and trying to release them the week or 2 weeks after is going to be quite important to the wider audience and the wider community. So yeah, if you enjoyed this, all my social media links are in the description below, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!